the nation is dissolved. The election of Abraham Lincoln to the presidency of the United States was considered by many Southerners as the final affront on a long series of provocations that had pushed their states to the brink of secession. Ironically, it was the Southern political leaders themselves who had split the Democratic ticket in 1860, thus ensuring Lincoln's election as a Republican. But the new president was anathema to the South. He appeared to the South not as we now know him, but as a malignant baboon, with abolitionist serpents as attendants. His election inspired the same fear and loathing that would arise today among conservatives if a communist were elected president. Samuel Eliot Morison and Henry Steele Commager, The Growth of the American Republic. Southerners for years had been reacting with increasing violence to all pressures relating to slavery. John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry in 1859 and his subsequent election to martyrdom by the Northern abolitionists were, they felt, a widespread conspiracy to murder Southern women and children. Brown attacked the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry to secure arms to begin an insurrection of the slaves. Unsuccessful, he was tried for treason and hanged. When Northerners attacked slavery, Southerners defended the institution by pointing to the miserable conditions of Northern factory workers. Southerners were incensed when Northerners did not cooperate in the return of runaway slaves. The law of the land clearly guaranteed the return of such legal property, and howls of frustration were heard when the South was prevented from ensuring that a new state in the Union might introduce or encourage slavery. All these stemmed from the two great exacerbating issues that divided the nation: the primacy of states' rights over national interests, and the right not only to maintain slavery but to extend it to new states and territories. Both issues had been debated since the formation of the federal government, and the debate had intensified as the first half of the 19th century drew to a close. The case for secession, according to Morison and Commager, was based on the axiom that the federal Constitution created a confederacy, not a government, and did not impair state sovereignty. In 1800, the vast majority of American citizens felt more loyal to their respective states than to the Union. In 1830, none but Virginians, Georgians, and the South Carolinians would have followed their states out of the Union on any possible issue. After 1844, with the growth of Southern self-consciousness, the phrase and the idea of state rights gave place in that section to Southern rights. In December 1860, a month after Lincoln's election, South Carolina took the bull by the horns and seceded, proclaiming that the Union of South Carolina with the other states under the name of the United States of America was dissolved. By February, Texas, Florida, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, and Louisiana had followed South Carolina out of the Union. These states dealt forthrightly with the issue of slavery. The people in the North were interfering with the South's practice of that peculiar institution. South Carolina's proclamation said in part, they, the North, have denounced as sinful the institution of slavery. They have permitted the open establishment among them of abolition societies, and have united in the election of a man to the high office of President of the U.S., whose opinions and purposes are hostile to slavery. Why was the issue of slavery so inflamed for Southerners? An important reason was the South's dependency on a single-crop economy. The invention of the cotton gin, and the consequent demand for cotton in the world market, had turned Southern planters away from such staples as tobacco and rice. By planting cotton, they were guaranteed a good profit, but this profit depended on cheap labor. So long as the slaves worked the field and a steady demand for cotton continued in the world market, part of this demand came from the mills in the North, slavery and cotton were a highly successful combination. By mid-century, more than three-quarters of the slave workforce, some 2.5 million slaves, picked cotton. The North had given up slavery long before, largely because it was uneconomical. The invention of the reaper had provided farmers in the North and Midwest with the means to expand their production of